I'd just like to say that Carole and I are absolutely delighted by today's announcement and thrilled at the prospect of a wedding sometime next year.
It sounds like a fairy tale. A flight attendant and a flight dispatcher meet, marry, and have children. Little did Carole and Michael Middleton know their humble roots would set the stage for one of the most talked about stories in modern royalty. Carole, once mocked for her working-class job, now sits at the heart of Britain's most famous family. But the path was anything but smooth. From class snobbery to tragic family legacies, their journey is filled with secrets, scandals, and a remarkable rise that defied all expectations. Carole and Michael Middleton's story. Carole and Michael Middleton's journey to becoming part of British royalty was anything but predictable. Carole's roots lay in the working-class streets of Southall, West London. She grew up in a close-knit family where her father worked as a builder and her mother managed the home. Her first major role was as a flight attendant, a job seen as respectable but modest in the class-conscious world of Britain at the time. Little did she know, this job would one day tie her to the most famous family in the country. Michael Middleton's story shared similar working-class origins. His father served as a captain in the Royal Air Force, which left an indelible mark on Michael. After school, he found work as a flight dispatcher for British Airways, a job that allowed him to travel but didn't scream luxury or aristocracy. Like Carole, he had no inkling that his career in aviation would set him on a path toward a much grander life. In 1980, Carole and Michael's lives would change forever when they met through their work at the airline. They married that same year and started their family. Their early life together was far from the opulence that would come later. They bought a modest house and were soon raising 3 children, Catherine, followed by Pippa and James. In those early years, they lived a comfortable middle-class existence, far removed from the royal world they would one day be associated with. During a time when Carole and Michael Middleton were carving out their futures, Carole's entrepreneurial instincts began to shine. She saw a gap in the market for children's party supplies and decided to take a chance. In 1987, Carole founded Party Pieces, starting in her very own kitchen. What began as a small mail-order service for party goods quickly grew into a thriving business. Carole's sharp sense of what parents wanted, paired with her unwavering drive, turned Party Pieces into a success story. Michael soon joined forces with her, and together they built the company, expanding it across the UK. With the success of Party Pieces came new financial security. The business became the backbone of their family's wealth, allowing them to afford a better life. Their children, Catherine, Pippa, and James, could attend private schools, and the family could enjoy comforts they hadn't experienced before. Despite their newfound success, Carole and Michael stayed true to their humble roots. They lived simply, prioritizing their children's education and future over luxury. Their hard work not only changed their own lives, but also shaped their children's grounded personalities. Through determination and perseverance, Carole and Michael provided their family with a solid foundation for both financial success and social mobility. However, this rise to financial stability wasn't without its shadow. The family's newfound wealth was partially tied to a trust fund from Carole's side, one that had a tragic origin. While the fund provided a safety net for the Middletons, it also carried a weight of sorrow that would follow them through their journey, social challenges, and class struggles. As Carole and Michael Middleton began to gain recognition, their working-class beginnings became a point of controversy, especially among the British elite. Although they had built up a solid financial base, their rise in society was met with skepticism and even scorn. Their humble origins, particularly Carole's background as a flight attendant, were often used to challenge their place in upper-class circles. The most significant resistance came from Prince William's circle of friends. Many of them were from long-established noble families, holding on to deep-rooted traditions and beliefs about class. To them, the Middletons were seen as outsiders, lacking the aristocratic lineage that was considered essential for families marrying into the royal fold. This led to a steady stream of criticism, with some individuals even mocking Carole directly. One of the most cutting jibes was the nickname "Doors to Manuel," a derogatory reference to her past as a flight attendant. The comment was reportedly coined by William's friends and highlighted the class divides that still lingered in these circles. The media too jumped on Carole's history, often portraying her as an overly ambitious woman trying to climb the social ladder. Despite her success in building party pieces and providing her family with financial security, tabloids continued to focus on her previous job, framing it as a symbol of her lower status. For some, her achievements were overshadowed by her past career, which was used as ammunition to question her suitability in royal circles. Despite facing harsh criticism, the Middletons also gained a significant amount of public support. Their rise from humble beginnings to financial success struck a chord with many across Britain. For some, their story represented the ideal of social mobility, proof that hard work and ambition could still carve a path to success, even in a society that had long been defined by class and privilege. Carole and Michael embodied this modern, meritocratic spirit, which resonated with those who admired their resilience and dedication to building a better life for their children. The Middletons were seen by many as a symbol of the new Britain, a family that had achieved success not by birthright, but through sheer determination. This admiration grew even more when Kate's relationship with Prince William became public. To the public, Kate appeared to be a grounded, approachable figure, offering a refreshing contrast to the often stiff and formal royal image. But the Middletons' entry into royal life was far from seamless. They were constantly navigating the tricky space between their middle-class roots and the old-world traditions of the aristocracy. The tension between the two worlds became most apparent at high society events. Carole, in particular, found her active role in party pieces, and her down-to-earth mannerisms were sometimes met with raised eyebrows by the British elite. Many aristocrats, who valued tradition and a certain level of detachment from business, looked at her commercial success with skepticism. For them, the idea of working hard to accumulate wealth, even through a successful business, clashed with their more old-fashioned beliefs about social status and inheritance. Michael, on the other hand, faced fewer public challenges. His more reserved demeanor and family background, which was seen as more rooted in traditional British values, made him somewhat more acceptable in aristocratic circles. Yet, even he couldn't escape the cultural divide that set the Middletons apart from the established aristocracy. The differences between the two families highlighted a long-standing tension within British society, one that has always struggled to reconcile new wealth with old traditions. Despite their notable success, Carole and Michael Middleton were often defined by their modest beginnings. This perception clung to them, making it hard to escape the shadow of their past. The pressure was compounded by constant media attention. Tabloids loved to paint the Middletons as outsiders, quick to criticize Carole's ambitions and question her true intentions. The paparazzi was ever present, snapping photos of the family at public events and in their private moments, fueling stories that suggested they were desperate to be part of royal circles. Some tabloids even speculated that Carole had orchestrated Kate's relationship with William, portraying it as a strategic move rather than a love story. For a family that valued privacy and simplicity, these portrayals felt not only wrong, but deeply hurtful. The relentless scrutiny added to the immense pressure they already felt as they tried to navigate their new roles in royal life. As the first family with true middle-class roots to see one of their own marry into the royal family, the Middletons became the focal point of debates on who truly belonged in the royal fold. and what class meant in that context. For traditionalists, their rise was seen as a threat to the purity of aristocratic tradition. To others, it symbolized a fresh chapter of inclusivity, where character and hard work mattered more than social standing. Throughout it all, Carole and Michael kept their dignity intact, but the toll of constant public judgment was undeniable. The family became more guarded, knowing that any misstep could be blown out of proportion by the press. This cautious approach allowed them to keep some semblance of privacy, but it also created a growing tension in royal circles. Every move they made, no matter how small, was scrutinized, blurring the lines between their personal lives and their public personas. Soon, however, the media's relentless focus shifted from mockery to outright intrusion, taking things to an entirely new and uncomfortable level. The inheritance with tragic roots. The Middleton family's wealth is often seen as a result of hard work, but there's more to the story. It's also tied to a legacy shaped by a tragic loss. The roots of their financial stability stretch back to Kate Middleton's great-great-grandfather, Francis Martino Lupton. He was a wealthy landowner and businessman from Leeds who built a fortune over his life. With 5 children, he planned to pass his wealth down through the generations. But when World War I broke out, everything changed in a way no one could have predicted, setting the course for the Middletons' financial future. Francis Lupton was a man of ambition and success. His properties and business dealings secured his family's financial standing. He had 3 sons and 2 daughters, and as they grew older, he hoped to share his wealth with them. But the outbreak of the Great War brought heartbreak. Like many young men of their time, Francis's 3 sons, Francis, Ashford, and Maurice, joined the British forces. Tragically, none of them returned. All 3 were killed in action, a loss that shattered the Lupton family. The inheritance now fell to his 2 daughters, Olive and Anne. The devastation Francis felt after losing his sons was profound. It's said that he was never the same afterward. Olive and Anne, now the unlikely heirs to the fortune, stepped into roles they hadn't imagined but accepted with responsibility. They inherited what would now be worth over $2 million. By the time the fortune passed down to Carole and Michael Middleton, the pain of the Lupton family's past had faded. But the wealth, shaped by tragedy, was very much alive. For Carole and Michael, the wealth they inherited offered a solid foundation to care for their family and secure their children's futures. It allowed them to send Kate and her siblings to elite schools and gave them the means to launch Party Pieces, their family business. The trust fund's legacy was the unseen force behind many of the opportunities that later helped shape Kate's path into the British royal family. Yet, while the family enjoyed the stability it brought, the true origins of their wealth were often overlooked by the public. This financial advantage, though beneficial, also brought its share of criticism. The media frequently portrayed the Middletons as eager social climbers, more focused on advantageous marriages and financial gain than on anything else. However, those familiar with the Lupton family's history understood that this narrative was far too simplistic. The trust fund from Francis Lupton's estate wasn't just an inheritance. It was a legacy born of heartbreak, passed down with the hope that future generations could build a stable life after such immense loss. The Middletons never lost sight of this history. They approached their success with a deep sense of duty and respect for what had come before them, mindful of the sacrifices that had made their opportunities possible. As Carole and Michael began to mingle with the royal family, their story was often reduced to the typical rags-to-riches narrative, leaving out the emotional weight behind their fortune. The media paid little attention to the Lupton Trust Fund, instead focusing on Carole's previous job as a flight attendant and Michael's work as a flight dispatcher. In doing so, the complexity of their family's history was overshadowed. The emotional legacy of the Lupton inheritance was rarely acknowledged, while their rise was painted as nothing more than a pursuit of social ambition. This misrepresentation ignored the true nature of their journey, which was shaped not only by financial opportunity, but also by the deep sorrow that had defined their family's past. As their connection to the royal family grew, this hidden history became even more significant. Carole and Michael's financial stability, though largely built on their own efforts, was undeniably tied to the inheritance they had received. But it was this blend of grief and success that laid the foundation for their family's future, shaped their children's lives, and ultimately opened the door for Kate to enter the royal family. The Middleton family faced constant media scrutiny and harsh criticism. Carole, in particular, became a frequent target, with her ambition and confidence turned into ammunition for the tabloids. Instead of focusing on the Middletons' close family bond or Kate's genuine relationship with William, the press painted Carole as a social climber, suggesting she was manipulating situations to gain access to royal circles. The media often reduced her to a stereotype, ignoring the complexity of her life and achievements. Her past as a flight attendant was highlighted again and again, framed as though it were something to be ashamed of, as if it disqualified her from having a place in royal circles. These portrayals ignored the fact that Carole had worked tirelessly to build a successful business from nothing. Michael Middleton, on the other hand, was portrayed as quiet and passive, the perfect foil to his more ambitious wife. The media often depicted him as a mere bystander in the family's rise, casting the Middletons as social climbers without recognizing their genuine hard work. The tabloids' harsh approach failed to acknowledge the changing nature of British society, where ambition and upward mobility are increasingly valued. For the Middletons, the constant criticism became a painful reminder that their every move was being watched and judged. This scrutiny didn't just affect Carole and Michael, it extended to their entire family. Pippa, Kate's sister, was subjected to similar portrayals, and even Kate's brother James was targeted by the press. Carole's relationship with her children, particularly Kate, was also frequently questioned. The tabloids painted her as overly controlling, even suggesting she tried to manage her daughter's life and career after Kate became a royal. These characterizations were often exaggerated or completely fabricated, but they became part of the public's image of Carole, turning her into a figure of mockery. The situation worsened with the release of The Crown on Netflix, a series known for blending historical events with fictionalized narratives. An episode portrayed Carole as an obsessed mother, fixated on her daughter's social ascent. This dramatized version of Carole only deepened the public's misconceptions about her. Viewers, unfamiliar with the real story of the Middleton family, saw Carole through the distorted lens of the show, further fueling the stereotype of the ambitious, manipulative mother. For Carole and Michael, the portrayal in The Crown was just another painful reminder of how their lives were being shaped by a public narrative they had no control over. This fictionalized version of Carole added a new layer to the family's struggles, blending fiction with reality in a way that made it even harder for the Middletons to escape the scrutiny and judgment that had dogged them for years. The tabloid hacking scandal of the early 2000s exposed the dark underbelly of the British press, revealing just how far they would go to invade the personal lives of public figures. For the Middleton family, this scandal marked a painful turning point, as their most private moments were targeted by hackers. Carole, Catherine, and even Prince William were victims, with their personal conversations being intercepted and exploited by journalists desperate for a story. This wasn't just about creating sensational headlines. It was a deep violation of their privacy that showed just how much access the media had to their lives. Carole's phone was hacked multiple times, with her voicemails and private messages being stolen and published. What she believed were intimate conversations with her family became open fodder for the tabloids, who sifted through her words to create lurid stories. Ordinary chats and personal moments were twisted into scandals, leaving Carole feeling exposed and vulnerable. The breach shook her sense of security, forcing her to question who she could trust and how much of her life was truly hers. For Catherine, still in a relationship with Prince William at the time, the hacking scandal was an even deeper wound. It revealed the high cost of her connection with the future king, as her private exchanges were made public. Her conversations with Carole, details about her relationship with William, and even plans for family events were laid bare for the world to see. This invasion added to the intense pressure Catherine was already facing as she tried to carve out a place for herself in the royal spotlight. Prince William, too, was hit hard by the scandal. Having spent his life under constant media scrutiny, he was protective of his personal life and those closest to him. The hacking of his and Catherine's private conversations reignited his long-standing distrust of the press. This incident became another chapter in his complicated relationship with the media, further fueling his resolve to shield his family from future violations. The emotional toll of the scandal was felt across the Middleton family, particularly during family holidays. What were once cherished traditions became tense, as they were now cautious about sharing moments that could be twisted and exploited. The hacking scandal stripped away any remaining sense of privacy, leaving them more wary of the press and their unrelenting scrutiny. James Middleton's battle with mental health became a heavy weight on the entire family. In 2019, he shared the painful truth about his ongoing struggle with severe depression. Describing it as a cancer of the mind, James spoke openly about how it made him feel isolated, even from those closest to him. For Carole and Michael, watching their son fight such a deep darkness was heartbreaking. Their son's vulnerability opened a window into the closeness of their family bond. Despite the pain, James credited his parents and sisters, especially Kate, for being unwavering supports through his darkest days. Their love and understanding were a lifeline when everything else felt out of reach. But even with the love and support of his family, the emotional toll on the Middletons was immense. Carole and Michael did everything they could to help, yet there were moments when they felt powerless. As parents, they stood by him with fierce dedication, but the experience forced them to confront how little they could do to ease his pain. It was a raw reminder that sometimes love isn't enough to heal all wounds. James's struggle with depression became a turning point for the family, bringing them even closer together, yet revealing the heavy emotional burdens each of them carried. For Carole and Michael, their bond grew stronger as they navigated this difficult period. Their unwavering commitment to James reflected the deep-rooted values of loyalty, resilience, and family unity that had always guided them through tough times. Their support for James echoed the very same strength they had relied on through earlier trials, cementing their devotion to one another. James's openness about his depression didn't just change his own life, it also brought attention to the broader issue of mental health. His willingness to speak out helped break down the stigma surrounding mental illness. The Middleton family's journey through this personal struggle also highlighted the importance of family in overcoming adversity. Kate, in particular, took this lesson to heart, using her platform to raise awareness about mental health, carrying forward the lessons learned from her brother's courage. But just as the family was rallying around James, another challenge loomed. Their long-standing business, Party Pieces, began to face serious financial difficulties. For years, Party Pieces was the cornerstone of Carole and Michael Middleton's success. It was the family business that had provided stability and growth. But in recent times, things began to change. The rise of massive online retailers and the shift in consumer behavior slowly chipped away at Party Pieces' market presence. Then, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, delivering a crushing blow. With social gatherings banned and celebrations put on hold, the business, built on the foundation of parties and events, struggled to survive. Sales dropped sharply, and the company couldn't seem to regain its footing. Financial problems, rising debts, and cash flow issues began to take a toll. Carole, who had been the driving force behind Party Pieces for so long, found herself in a position she never imagined, stepping away. The business she had built from the ground up was now on the brink of collapse, and she and Michael faced the painful reality that they might have to sell. The decision was a heavy one. After months of considering every possible option and trying to turn things around, they realized that selling the company was the only solution left. Parting with Party Pieces wasn't just a business move, it was the end of an era for the Middletons. This company had been the foundation of their family's success, and now, letting it go felt like losing a piece of their history. It was a bitter pill to swallow. The financial relief that came with selling was tempered by the emotional weight of walking away from a legacy they had poured so much of themselves into. As they navigated the grief of this loss, another challenge soon emerged. Kate, who had always been a source of pride for her parents, was now facing her own struggle. This new health battle would bring even more worry and concern to the Middleton family, adding another layer of uncertainty to their already difficult year. When Kate Middleton faced a health struggle, it added a new layer of concern to the Middleton family. Carole and Michael, as parents, wanted nothing more than to protect their daughter from further stress. But they knew her responsibilities left little room for respite. Carole, ever the hands-on mother, stepped up in every way she could. She took on more duties to ease the load on Kate, helping with her children's routines to keep things as normal as possible, and managing the family's logistics so Kate didn't have to worry. But Carole's role went beyond just the practical. She became Kate's emotional rock, a constant presence through difficult times. This was a moment that tested both mother and daughter, but it also strengthened their bond. As Carole and Michael came together to support Kate, their commitment to each other and their daughter shone through. It was a reminder of the unity and strength that had always been the backbone of the Middleton family. Kate's health challenges affected everyone, and each family member played their part in offering support. Pippa and James were right there too, stepping in when they could, always ready to lend a hand. Even with their own struggles, they remained a tightly knit team, showing unconditional love and support for one another. Through all these hardships, Kate's health issues, the strain of financial struggles, and James's mental health battles, the Middletons remained resilient. Their ability to pull together, to face adversity with unwavering love and determination, was the foundation that had always kept them strong. The family's legacy of unity and perseverance was clear. It was this spirit that had helped them weather life's toughest storms, and it was this spirit that would carry them forward, no matter what challenges lay ahead.